6 years ago, I thought she had limits.
Today, she told 911 I kidnapped my own son.
My ex-wife called me impotent in front of a packed courtroom 6 years ago. Last Tuesday, she called 911 and told them I kidnapped my own son. The difference between those 2 days? 6 years ago, I still thought she had limits. I'm Jack Sullivan, and I own Sullivan Construction in Millfield, Massachusetts. Population 12,000 on a good day, 8,000 when the college kids go home for summer. It's the kind of place where everyone knows your business before you do, and my business became everyone's entertainment the day Rebecca decided to destroy me in family court. Your Honor, my husband suffers from performance issues that have made our marriage unbearable, she'd said, her voice carrying to the back row where my own mother sat. He's been unable to fulfill his marital duties for over 2 years. The judge, an old bastard named Henley, who'd probably been having his own performance issues since the Carter administration, nodded sympathetically. My lawyer, a kid fresh out of Suffolk who charged me $300 an hour to watch my life get flushed down the toilet, just sat there taking notes. I wanted to stand up and tell everyone exactly how Rebecca had been fulfilling her duties with half the town, but my lawyer had warned me against it. Let her talk, he'd whispered. She's making herself look bad. She wasn't. She was making me look bad. Real bad. The custody went to her. The house went to her. My son, Tommy, all of 9 years old at the time, looked at me like I was some broken toy his mother was throwing away. I got weekends and the privilege of paying child support that was roughly equivalent to a BMW lease. That was 6 years ago. 6 years of rebuilding, of learning to sleep alone, of picking up Tommy every other Friday and pretending everything was fine. 6 years of walking into the hardware store and seeing people whisper behind displays of nuts and bolts. But I rebuilt. Sullivan Construction went from a 2-man operation run out of my garage to 15 guys and 3 crews. I bought a house on Maple Street, nothing fancy, but it had a big backyard where Tommy could throw a baseball without hitting Mrs. Peterson's roses. I learned to cook something other than microwaved hot dogs. I even started dating again, though that was a slow process in a town where everyone knew your supposed bedroom problems. Then came last month's spring festival. Tommy was with me for the weekend, and we'd gone to the high school for the annual craft fair and barbecue. The whole town turns out for it, the kind of Norman Rockwell bullshit that makes tourists think New England is all maple syrup and good intentions. We were waiting in line for corn dogs when I saw her. Rebecca, looking like she'd stepped out of a magazine, all perfectly styled blonde hair and a dress that probably cost more than my truck payment. Next to her stood a guy about my age, wearing jeans that had never seen actual work, and a polo shirt with some tech company logo I didn't recognize. "Daddy, there's Mom," Tommy said, tugging my sleeve. "I see her, buddy." Rebecca spotted us, and her face lit up with that smile she used to give me before she decided I wasn't worth the effort. She walked over, Mr. Polo Shirt trailing behind like a well-dressed shadow. "Jack," she said, her voice honey-sweet with just enough condescension to make my teeth ache. "You look... well, Rebecca." I nodded to her companion. "This must be the new husband." "Daniel Carter," the guy said, extending his hand. His grip was weak, like shaking hands with a dead fish. "I've heard so much about you." "Nothing good, I'm sure." Rebecca laughed, that tinkling sound she made when she was about to stick the knife in. "Oh, we don't really talk about you much at all, Jack. Daniel's much too busy with his company. He's revolutionizing data analytics for small businesses." "Sounds exciting," I said, ruffling Tommy's hair. "What do you say we get those corn dogs, champ?" "Actually," Rebecca said, stepping closer, "I was hoping we could talk about Tommy's schedule." Here it comes, I thought, the real reason she'd approached us. "What about it?" "Well, Daniel and I are planning some weekend trips this summer, and it would be so much easier if we could be more flexible with the custody arrangement." "You mean you want to take my weekends away?" "I mean, I want what's best for Tommy. He needs stability, Jack. He needs to be part of a real family." Tommy looked back and forth between us, his face scrunched up in confusion. At 10, he was smart enough to know when adults were fighting, but not quite old enough to understand why. "He has a real family," I said quietly. "He has me." Daniel cleared his throat. "Look, Jack, we're not trying to cut you out, but let's be realistic here. Rebecca provides a stable home environment, financial security, educational opportunities, and I provide what exactly?" "Well," Daniel glanced at Rebecca, who nodded encouragingly, "you provide what you can, I'm sure, but Tommy's getting older. He needs role models who can show him what real success looks like. The festival continued around us, families laughing and kids running with balloons, but I felt like we were standing in our own little bubble of poison. Real success, I repeated. Daniel graduated from MIT, Rebecca said. His company is being courted by 3 venture capital firms. Tommy could learn so much from him about ambition, about planning for the future instead of just getting by. Getting by. Like that's all I'd been doing for the past 6 years. Tell you what, I said, forcing a smile. Why don't we let Tommy decide what he wants to do this summer? That's not how custody works, Jack, Rebecca said, her voice sharpening. Children need guidance, not choices they're not equipped to make. Like the choice between having a father who works with his hands or one who pushes papers around? One who builds a future instead of just swinging a hammer. Tommy tugged my shirt again. Dad, can we just get the corn dogs? I looked down at my son, then back at Rebecca and her new prize husband. Sure, buddy. Let's go. As we walked away, I heard Daniel say, not quite quietly enough, I don't know how you stood it for so long. Rebecca's response was even clearer. I didn't. That's why I left. That was 3 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I got the legal papers. Rebecca was petitioning the court to modify our custody arrangement. She wanted Tommy full-time, with me getting 1 weekend a month and Wednesday evening dinners. The reason? Changed circumstances requiring reassessment of the child's best interests. I'd seen this before. She was going for the kill shot. I called my lawyer, not the kid from Suffolk, but a woman named Patricia Banks, who'd handled my business incorporation and knew how to fight. She read through the papers while I sat in her office, watching the meter run. She's claiming you're financially unstable, Patricia said. Says your business is struggling and you've been living paycheck to paycheck. That's bullshit. I can show you my books. She's also claiming you've been exhibiting erratic behavior around Tommy. Mood swings, inappropriate discussions about adult topics, failure to maintain consistent household routines. More bullshit. Patricia looked up from the papers. Jack, I have to ask, is any of this true, even a little bit? No, none of it. Because if there's anything she could point to, any incident that might support these claims, there's nothing. I pick up Tommy every other Friday at 6. We spend the weekend doing normal father-son stuff. I take him to school Monday morning and drop him off at her place. Same routine for 6 years. Then we fight it. But Jack, you need to know, custody modifications are expensive. She's got resources now that she didn't have during your divorce. Resources. Right. Mr. MIT and his data analytics revolution. What's this going to cost me? Depends how dirty she wants to get. If she's just testing the waters, maybe $5,000. If she's going for blood, Patricia shrugged. Sky's the limit. I left her office with a retainer agreement and a sick feeling in my stomach. Rebecca wasn't testing the waters, she was going for blood, and we both knew it. That night, I sat in my kitchen with a beer and tried to figure out what I'd done wrong. Tommy was asleep upstairs in his bedroom, the one I'd painted blue and filled with Red Sox posters because that's what 10-year-old boys like. The house was quiet except for the dishwasher running and the sound of my neighbor's dog barking at shadows. 6 years. 6 years of playing by the rules, of being the good dad who never badmouthed his ex-wife in front of their kid, who paid child support on time and never missed a scheduled pickup. 6 years of swallowing my pride and rebuilding my life one day at a time. And for what? So she could take the last thing that mattered to me? My phone buzzed. Text message from Rebecca. Jack, I hope you'll consider what's best for Tommy and not put him through a lengthy legal battle. He deserves better than watching his parents fight in court again. I stared at that message for a long time, then typed back, see you in court. Her response came 30 seconds later. Your choice. Don't say I didn't warn you. That's when I knew she had something else planned. Rebecca had never been subtle about her threats, but she'd never been cryptic either. When she said, don't say I didn't warn you, she meant she had another card to play. I found out what it was the following Tuesday. I was at the job site, a kitchen renovation for the Kowalski family on Elm Street, when my phone rang. Unknown number, but I answered anyway. Mr. Sullivan, this is Officer Janet Pierce with the Millfield Police Department. We need to speak with you about your son. The hammer slipped from my hand and clattered onto the tile floor. What about Tommy? Is he hurt? Sir, we've received a report that you've taken your son without permission. We need you to bring him to the station immediately. What? I don't have Tommy. It's Tuesday. He's at school. Sir, according to the report, you picked him up from school at noon today. His mother is very concerned. I looked at my watch. 2:30 p.m. Officer, I've been at work all day. My whole crew can vouch for that. Tommy's supposed to be in Mrs. Henderson's class right now. Can you come to the station so we can sort this out? I'll be right there. I told my foreman Mike to take over and drove to the police station with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. This was it. This was Rebecca's next move. The Millfield Police Department occupied half of a brick building on Main Street, sharing space with the town clerk's office and a dentist who'd been pulling teeth since before I was born. Officer Pierce met me at the front desk, a woman about my age with short brown hair and tired eyes. Mr. Sullivan? I'm Janet Pierce. We spoke on the phone. Where's my son? Why don't we sit down and talk about this? She led me to a small interview room that smelled like coffee and industrial disinfectant. On the table was a manila folder and a cup of coffee that had been sitting there long enough to grow a skin. Mr. Sullivan, your ex-wife called us at 12:45 today. She said you picked Tommy up from school without permission and that she was concerned for his safety. I told you, I was at work. I can give you the address, the phone number, the names of my crew. We've already confirmed your alibi, Officer Pierce said, opening the folder. Your foreman says you've been on site since 7 this morning. Then why am I here? Officer Pierce studied me for a moment, her head tilted slightly like she was trying to figure out a puzzle. You look familiar. Did we go to high school together? Maybe. I graduated from Millfield High in '98. Janet Murphy, she said. I was 2 years behind you. I remember you from the baseball team. Janet Murphy. I did remember her. Quiet girl, honor roll, dated the student council president. She'd filled out some since high school, but she still had the same direct way of looking at people that had made her seem older than her years. Small world, I said. Small town, she corrected. Jack, I've got to ask you something, and I want you to answer me honestly. Is there any reason your ex-wife would think you took Tommy today? Besides wanting to make my life hell? No. Janet, Officer Pierce smiled slightly. I remember your ex-wife from high school too, Rebecca Walsh. She was intense. That's one word for it. Jack, I've been doing this job for 8 years. I know what a real kidnapping report looks like, and I know what a vindictive ex-spouse looks like. This, she tapped the folder, looks like the second thing. So what happens now? Now I file a report that says we investigated an alleged kidnapping, determined there was no credible threat, and closed the case. But Jack, she leaned forward, this isn't going to be the end of it. Whatever's going on between you two, it's escalating. She was right. I knew it. She knew it. And somewhere across town, Rebecca knew it too. Any advice? I asked. Document everything. Every interaction, every phone call, every text message, and maybe think about getting ahead of whatever she's planning next. I left the police station feeling like a man who just dodged a bullet, but knew the shooter was still out there, reloading. My phone had 6 missed calls from Patricia Banks and 3 text messages from Tommy's school asking me to call immediately. I called the school first. The principal, Mrs. Davidson, sounded frazzled. Mr. Sullivan, we've had quite a day here. Tommy's mother called at noon saying there was a family emergency and that you'd be picking him up. Then she called back 20 minutes later saying she'd made a mistake and that Tommy should stay in class. Then the police called asking if Tommy was missing. Where's Tommy now? He's here. He's fine. But Mr. Sullivan, we can't have these kinds of mix-ups. It's disruptive to the classroom and frankly, it's concerning from a safety standpoint. Mrs. Davidson, I never called the school. I never asked to pick up Tommy. Silence on the other end. Then, are you saying someone impersonated you? I'm saying someone lied to you about a family emergency to create a situation where they could call the police and claim I kidnapped my own son. Another silence. Mr. Sullivan, these are serious accusations. Yes, they are, and I'll be happy to discuss them with you in person tomorrow morning. I hung up and called Patricia Banks. Jack, what the hell is going on? She said by way of greeting. Rebecca's playing dirty. Dirty? She filed a false police report. That's beyond dirty. That's criminal. Can we prove it? Maybe. But Jack, even if we can, the damage is done. She's creating a pattern of concern about your behavior. First the custody motion claiming you're unstable, now a police report about kidnapping. It doesn't matter if the charges don't stick. It matters that there's a paper trail. So what do I do? You be very, very careful. Very. And you start thinking about how to turn this around on her. That night, I picked up Tommy from school as usual. He seemed subdued, quiet in a way that wasn't like him. Everything okay, champ? Mom said there was an emergency today, at school, but then there wasn't. Yeah, I heard about that, just a mix-up. She seemed really mad when she picked me up. She kept asking if I'd talked to you, if you'd called the school. I glanced at him in the rearview mirror. What did you tell her? The truth, that I hadn't talked to you since Monday morning. Smart kid. Too smart for his own good, maybe. Tommy, I need to ask you something, and I want you to tell me the truth, okay? Okay. Has your mom been saying things about me? About why we got divorced? Or about me not being able to take care of you? Tommy was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window at the houses passing by. Finally, he said, She says you try your best, but that some people just aren't meant to be married. And Daniel says that's why kids need stability. What do you think? I think Daniel talks too much. I couldn't help but smile. Yeah? What does he talk about? Everything. How much money he makes, how smart he is, how he's going to help Mom with her career. Last weekend, he spent an hour explaining why his car is better than yours. His Tesla? He says it's the car of the future. I told him your truck can haul a boat and his car can't even haul a trailer. What did he say to that? He said someday I'd understand the difference between working smart and working hard. I pulled into our driveway and turned off the engine. Tommy, do you know what I do for work? You build stuff, houses and kitchens and decks. That's right. And every house I build, every kitchen I renovate, every deck I put on someone's backyard, that's something real. Something people can see and touch and use every day. When I'm gone, those things will still be here. What about Daniel's job? Daniel's job is important too in its own way, but I'd rather build something with my hands than push numbers around on a computer. Tommy nodded solemnly. Me too, Dad. That weekend, things felt normal. We went to the hardware store on Saturday morning, and Tommy helped me pick out lumber for a bookshelf we were going to build for his room. We had lunch at Murphy's Diner, where the waitress knew to bring Tommy chocolate chip pancakes without asking. On Sunday, we went to the Red Sox game in Boston, sitting in the bleachers and eating hot dogs that cost $8 each. It was the kind of weekend that reminded me why I was fighting so hard to keep it. Monday morning came too soon. I drove Tommy to school, gave him a hug, and watched him run toward the building with his backpack bouncing on his shoulders. It was supposed to be 2 weeks before I saw him again. I never made it 2 weeks. Wednesday evening, I was at home going over invoices when my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Officer Pierce standing on my porch, looking uncomfortable. Janet, this is a surprise. Jack, I need to talk to you. Can I come in? I stepped aside and led her into the living room. She looked around, taking in the football on the coffee table, the stack of Tommy's school books on the side table, the framed picture of us at Fenway Park. Nice place, she said. Thanks. What's this about? Janet sat on the couch and pulled out her notebook. I got another call today, about you. My stomach dropped. From Rebecca? From a concerned citizen who said they saw you following a school bus on Elm Street this afternoon. I was coming back from a job site. The Kowalski house, remember? We're finishing up their kitchen. I know, I checked. But Jack, the caller specifically said you were driving slowly behind the bus, like you were following it. Elm Street is on my way home. The speed limit is 25. If there's a school bus in front of me, I'm going to drive slowly behind it because that's the law. Janet nodded. That's what I figured. But Jack, this is the second call in a week. Someone's building a case here. Someone named Rebecca. I can't prove that, but off the record, yeah, probably. I sat down across from her. What would you do if you were in my position? Honestly, I'd start fighting back, but carefully, very carefully. What does that mean? Janet closed her notebook and leaned forward. It means you document everything, like I said before, but it also means you stop reacting to her moves and start making some of your own, such as finding out what she's really up to. Nobody goes to this much trouble just to get full custody. She wants something else. Like what? I don't know. But if I were you, I'd find out. After Janet left, I sat in my kitchen with a legal pad and started writing down everything I knew about Rebecca's new life. She'd married Daniel Carter 8 months ago. He owned some kind of tech company. They lived in the big colonial on Prospect Street that had been on the market for 2 years before someone finally bought it. Rebecca was still practicing law, still with the same firm she'd worked for during our marriage. On the surface, everything looked perfect for her. New husband with money, big house, successful career. So why was she so determined to destroy me? I called my brother Mike. We hadn't talked much since the divorce. He'd always liked Rebecca, and the whole thing had made family gatherings awkward. But Mike was a detective with the state police, and if anyone could help me figure out Rebecca's angle, it was him. Jack? Jesus, it's been forever. How are you? I've been better. Mike, I need a favor. What kind of favor? I told him about the custody battle, the false police reports, the harassment. I told him about Daniel Carter and his tech company, and the feeling I had that there was more going on than just a bitter ex-wife trying to get revenge. You want me to run a background check on your ex-wife's new husband, Mike said. I want to know what I'm dealing with. Mike was quiet for a moment. Jack, this is messy. If Rebecca found out I was helping you, she won't find out. And Mike, I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate. Give me his full name and date of birth if you have it. I'll see what I can find. I owe you one. You owe me more than one. But we're family, right? 3 days later, Mike called me back. Jack, we need to talk. In person. That bad? Just meet me at Flanagan's after work. And Jack, come alone. Flanagan's was a dive bar on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where the bartender knew everyone's name and nobody asked questions about why you needed a drink at 5 in the afternoon. Mike was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with a beer and a manila envelope. You look like hell, I said, sliding into the seat across from him. I feel like hell. Jack, I found some stuff about Daniel Carter. Some of it's public record, some of it isn't. He slid the envelope across the table. Carter's company, Dataflow Analytics, is in serious financial trouble. They've got about 6 months of operating capital left, and their main investor pulled out last month. I opened the envelope and found printouts of financial documents, court filings, and newspaper articles. So he's broke? Worse. He's been using company funds for personal expenses. His ex-business partner filed a lawsuit 3 months ago, claiming Carter embezzled nearly $200,000. Holy shit. It gets worse. Carter's been married twice before. Both marriages ended in bitter divorces. Both ex-wives claimed financial abuse. I looked up from the papers. Financial abuse? He convinces women to invest their money in his business ventures, then uses the money for his own expenses. When the businesses fail, the women are left holding the debt. The pieces were starting to come together. Rebecca's been working a lot of overtime lately. Tommy mentioned she's been taking on extra cases. Jack, I think your ex-wife is being set up, and I think Carter's using her legal connections to try to legitimize his business dealings. What do you mean? Mike pulled out another document. Carter's been using Rebecca's law firm as his business address. She's listed as the registered agent for 3 of his companies. If those companies go under, if there are lawsuits or criminal charges, she's going to be right in the middle of it. I stared at the papers, trying to process what I was seeing. She has no idea, does she? I doubt it. Carter's good at this. He finds successful women, charms them, marries them, and then slowly takes control of their finances. By the time they figure out what's happening, it's too late. So what do I do with this? Mike finished his beer. That depends on how much you hate her. What do you mean? You could warn her. Tell her what Carter's really up to. Give her a chance to protect herself. Or you could let her find out the hard way. Let Carter destroy her the same way she's trying to destroy you. I looked at the papers again. Financial documents, court filings, evidence of fraud and manipulation. Everything I needed to destroy Daniel Carter's credibility, and probably Rebecca's career along with it. There's a third option, I said. Yeah? What's that? I use this to stop her from taking Tommy away from me. Mike nodded slowly. That's what I thought you'd say. I took the envelope and stood up. Thanks, Mike. I owe you. Just be careful, Jack. This kind of information is dangerous. If Carter figures out you have it, he won't. But as I walked out to my truck, I realized I wasn't sure if that was true. Daniel Carter had fooled Rebecca, fooled investors, fooled business partners. He was smart, manipulative, and desperate. That combination made him dangerous. It also made him vulnerable. I spent that night reading through Mike's files, making notes, looking for connections. By morning, I had a plan. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't noble, and it probably wasn't legal. But it would work. The first step was getting Tommy's help, and that made me feel like the worst father in the world. I picked him up for our weekend as usual, but instead of going home, I drove to a parking lot behind the town library where we could talk privately. Tommy, I need to ask you something important, and I need you to think carefully before you answer. Okay, Dad. Has Daniel ever talked to you about money, About his business or your mom's work? Tommy scrunched up his face, thinking. Sometimes. He talks about his company a lot, and he's always asking Mom about her cases, about how much money she makes. What kinds of things does he ask? Like, if she's getting paid enough, or if her clients pay on time. Last week, he was asking about her savings account, if she had enough money saved for emergencies. Red flags were going off in my head. What did your mom say? She said she had plenty saved up and that Daniel didn't need to worry about money because his company was doing so well. Did Daniel say anything to that? He said maybe they should combine their bank accounts so it would be easier to pay bills and stuff. Carter was moving in for the kill. He'd identified Rebecca's assets and was maneuvering to get access to them. I wondered how long it would be before he convinced her to invest in his failing company. Tommy, I need you to do something for me, and it has to be our secret. Can you do that? Tommy looked uncertain. I guess. What is it? I handed him a small digital recorder I'd bought at Radio Shack that morning. If Daniel ever talks about money or business when you're around, I want you to record it. Just turn this on and leave it somewhere he can't see it. Why? Because I think Daniel might be lying to your mom about some things, and if he is, she needs to know about it. Will it get me in trouble? No, buddy, you won't get in trouble. But Tommy, this is really important. You can't tell anyone about this. Not your mom, not Daniel, not your friends at school, nobody. Can you promise me that? Tommy nodded solemnly. I promise, Dad. I felt sick about involving him, but I didn't have a choice. Rebecca had dragged our son into this fight the moment she decided to take him away from me. 2 weeks later, Tommy came back from a weekend at his mother's house with the recorder and a strange look on his face. Dad, I got something. We sat on my couch and listened to the recording. The audio quality was poor, but the voices were clear enough. Rebecca and Daniel having what they thought was a private conversation in their kitchen. I don't understand why you need access to my retirement account, Rebecca was saying. Baby, it's not about need. It's about trust. Married couples share their finances. It's how you build a life together. We haven't been married that long, Daniel. Maybe we should wait. Wait for what? For my company to go public? For us to make millions? Rebecca, I'm offering to share everything I have with you. The least you could do is show the same trust. It's not about trust. It's about being practical. Practical? You know what's practical? Combining our resources so we can maximize our investment opportunities. I've got 3 venture capital firms interested in data flow. If we can show them we have significant liquid assets, you want me to invest my retirement savings in your company? I want us to invest in our future. Together. The recording went on for another 10 minutes, Daniel pressuring Rebecca to give him access to her accounts, Rebecca resisting but slowly being worn down by his arguments. By the end of the conversation, she'd agreed to think about it. I turned off the recorder and looked at Tommy. You did good, champ. This is exactly what I needed. Is Daniel really lying to Mom? Yeah, buddy, I think he is. Are you going to tell her? I thought about it. I could call Rebecca, play her the recording, show her Mike's research. I could warn her about Carter's history, his financial troubles, his pattern of targeting successful women. I could save her from making the biggest mistake of her life, or I could let her make that mistake and use it to get my son back. Maybe, I said, but first I want to see what else Daniel has planned. Over the next month, Tommy brought me 3 more recordings. Each one was more damaging than the last. Daniel pressuring Rebecca to take out a second mortgage on their house. Daniel asking her to use her law firm's connections to help him find investors. Daniel suggesting she quit her job and come work for his company full-time. And Rebecca, slowly but surely, giving in to every request. By the end of May, I had enough evidence to destroy Daniel Carter 6 ways from Sunday. I also had something else. A plan to make Rebecca pay for every humiliation she'd put me through over the past 6 years. The annual Millfield Spring Festival was coming up again, the same event where Rebecca and Daniel had confronted me a year earlier. This year, I was going to turn the tables. I spent 2 weeks making preparations. I printed copies of all the financial documents Mike had given me. I made copies of the recordings Tommy had captured. I researched Daniel's business partners, his ex-wives, his creditors. I even found his high school yearbook photo, the one where he looked like the smug rich kid who'd never worked a day in his life. The night before the festival, I called Patricia Banks. Jack, please tell me you're not about to do something stupid. I'm about to do something necessary. Those aren't mutually exclusive. What's your plan? I told her. She was quiet for a long time after I finished. Jack, this could backfire spectacularly. If you're wrong about any of this, I'm not wrong. If you are, you'll lose Tommy forever. Rebecca will use this to prove you're unfit to be a parent. And if I'm right, if you're right, you'll humiliate your ex-wife in front of the entire town and probably destroy her marriage. You're sure that's what you want? I thought about the past year, the false police reports, the custody battle, the constant fear that I was going to lose the only thing in my life that mattered. I thought about Rebecca's smug smile in the courtroom 6 years ago, her voice carrying to the back row, "He's been unable to fulfill his marital duties." "Yeah," I said, "I'm sure." The spring festival was held on the high school football field, with booths and games spread across the grass and a small stage set up near the goalposts for announcements and entertainment. By noon, half the town was there, families with kids, teenagers trying to look cool, elderly couples walking hand in hand. I found Rebecca and Daniel near the dunking booth, where Daniel was showing off his throwing arm and failing miserably to hit the target. Rebecca was laughing and cheering him on, playing the supportive wife. She looked happy, genuinely happy, and for a moment I almost felt bad about what I was going to do. Almost. Tommy was with them, looking bored and periodically glancing around the crowd. He spotted me first and waved. Rebecca followed his gaze, and her smile faltered slightly when she saw me approaching. "Jack," she said, her voice carefully neutral, "I didn't expect to see you here. Wouldn't miss it. It's become an annual tradition." Daniel turned around, a baseball still in his hand. "Jack, good to see you, man. Want to give this a try? I've been working on my fastball." "I bet you have." Something in my tone made Rebecca look at me more closely. "Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine. Actually, everything's perfect." I pulled out my phone and held it up. "Daniel, I've been doing some research on your company. Data flow analytics, right?" Daniel's expression didn't change, but I saw his grip tighten on the baseball. "Yeah, that's right. What about it?" "Interesting business model. You help small businesses analyze their data, right?" "That's a simplified version, but yes." "And you're funded by venture capital?" Daniel glanced at Rebecca, who was watching our conversation with growing confusion. "We're exploring several funding options." "Including your wife's retirement account?" The color drained from Daniel's face. Rebecca stepped closer. "What are you talking about, Jack?" I pulled out my phone and pressed play on the first recording. Daniel's voice filled the air around us. "I want us to invest in our future, together." Rebecca's voice followed. "You want me to invest my retirement savings in your company?" "I want us to invest in our future, together." People were starting to notice. A small crowd was gathering around us, drawn by the sound of voices they recognized coming from my phone. "Turn that off," Daniel said, his voice tight. "Why? It's just a conversation between husband and wife. Nothing wrong with that, right?" Rebecca was staring at the phone like it was a snake. "Where did you get that recording?" "Does it matter? What matters is what's on it." I pressed play on the second recording, the one where Daniel pressured Rebecca to take out a second mortgage, then the third, where he suggested she quit her job to work for his company. By now, we had an audience of about 20 people, including Mrs. Davidson from Tommy's school and 3 members of the town council. Rebecca's face was bright red, but I couldn't tell if it was from embarrassment or anger. "This is a private matter," she said. "You have no right. I have every right, especially when it involves my son's welfare." I pulled out the printed financial documents and started reading from them like I was delivering a weather report. "Data Flow Analytics, Incorporated in Delaware, fiscal year 2023 revenue, $47,000. Operating expenses, $132,000. Net loss, $85,000. Daniel lunged for the papers, but I stepped back. "Current cash reserves, approximately $6,000. Projected bankruptcy date, August 15th. "Those documents are confidential," Daniel said. "How did you—" "Public record, Dan. Your business partner filed a lawsuit 3 months ago. Very illuminating reading." I turned to the crowd, which had grown to about 50 people. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet Daniel Carter, successful entrepreneur and my ex-wife's husband. Daniel's previous business ventures include 2 failed startups, a pyramid scheme that got him banned from 3 states, and a pattern of financial fraud that's left him owing money to everyone from his ex-wives to the IRS." "That's slander," Daniel sputtered. "I'll sue you for every penny." "With what money? According to these court documents, you're currently 3 months behind on your office rent." Rebecca was looking back and forth between us like she was watching a tennis match. "Daniel, is this true?" "Baby, you know I can explain. Is it true? Some of it might be technically accurate, but the context, I interrupted, is that your husband is a con man who's been systematically manipulating you to gain access to your money, just like he did to his previous wives. I handed Rebecca a copy of the lawsuit his ex-business partner had filed. Patricia Williamson versus Daniel Carter, filed March 15th. Claims of embezzlement, fraud, and misappropriation of funds. Your husband stole $200,000 from his business partner and used it to finance his lifestyle. Rebecca read the first page of the lawsuit, her face growing paler with each line. Daniel? It's all lies, Rebecca. Patricia's bitter because our relationship didn't work out. She's trying to destroy me. Which relationship? I asked. The business relationship or the personal one? Because according to this divorce decree, you were married to Patricia for 6 months before she figured out what you were up to. I handed Rebecca another document. And before Patricia, there was Jennifer Morrison, married 8 months, divorced when she discovered Daniel had emptied her savings account to pay off gambling debts. The crowd around us had grown to over 100 people. Word was spreading across the festival like wildfire. I could see people pulling out their phones, filming, texting. By tonight, this would be all over social media. Rebecca looked up from the divorce decree, tears in her eyes. How long have you known about this? A few weeks. I hired a private investigator after you filed the custody motion. And you didn't think to tell me? Would you have believed me? She didn't answer, but we both knew the truth. If I'd called her a month ago and told her Daniel was a fraud, she would have accused me of lying, of trying to sabotage her marriage out of jealousy. Rebecca, Daniel said, reaching for her arm, we can talk about this at home. We don't need to do this in front of... Don't touch me. She jerked away from him. Don't ever touch me again. Baby, please. You know I love you. You love my bank account. You love my house. You love my connections. Rebecca's voice was getting louder, more hysterical. But you never loved me. That's not true. It's all true. She turned to face the crowd, tears streaming down her cheeks. He's right. Daniel's been lying to me about everything. His company, his finances, his past, all of it. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Rebecca, I said quietly, we should probably... No! She spun around to face me, her eyes blazing. You knew. You knew what he was doing to me, and you just watched. You mean like you watched when you humiliated me in divorce court? Like you watched when you filed false police reports to try to make me look like a kidnapper? The crowd was dead silent now, hanging on every word. This was better than cable television. That's different, Rebecca said. How? How is it different? Because you deserved it. You were a terrible husband, a terrible father. I was a husband who worked 16-hour days to provide for his family. I was a father who loved his son more than anything in the world. And you destroyed me because I wasn't good enough for your ambitions. I gestured toward Daniel, who was looking around desperately for an escape route. So you traded me in for this? For a con man who's been planning to bankrupt you from the day you met? I didn't know. You didn't want to know. You wanted the fantasy. The successful businessman, the big house, the perfect life. You wanted it so badly that you ignored every red flag. Rebecca was sobbing now, mascara running down her cheeks. Jack, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Are you sorry for humiliating me in court? Are you sorry for trying to take my son away from me? Are you sorry for filing false police reports and trying to have me arrested? Yes. Yes, I'm sorry for all of it. Good, because now you know how it feels. I turned to Tommy, who had been watching this whole scene with wide eyes. Come on, champ. Let's go get some cotton candy. Wait. Rebecca grabbed my arm. What about the custody case? I looked at her hand on my arm, then at her tear-stained face. What about it? I'll drop it. The motion, the custody modification. I'll drop all of it. In writing? Yes. Tomorrow. I'll call my lawyer and have him file the paperwork. I nodded. And Daniel? Rebecca looked over at her husband, who was trying to slink away through the crowd. Daniel can go to hell. She called out to him. Daniel? Where do you think you're going? He stopped and turned around, his face red with embarrassment and anger. I'm leaving. This is insane. You're not going anywhere. We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about, Rebecca. You've made your choice. Yes, I have. I choose to know the truth about your business, about your debts, about your other wives. All of it. Daniel looked around at the crowd of people staring at him, then back at Rebecca. Fine. You want the truth? Here's the truth. You're right. My company is failing. I am broke. And yes, I was hoping to use your money to bail myself out. The crowd gasped. Someone in the back yelled, "I knew it!" "But you know what else is true?" Daniel continued. "Your ex-husband is a loser who swings a hammer for a living and drives a pickup truck that's older than his kid. I was trying to give you a better life. By lying to me? By being what you wanted me to be. You didn't want reality, Rebecca. You wanted the dream. The successful husband, the big house, the status. I gave you that. You gave me nothing but lies." Daniel shrugged. "The lies made you happy. Until today." With that, he turned and walked away, pushing through the crowd toward the parking lot. Rebecca called after him, but he didn't look back. I watched him go, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and something that might have been pity. Daniel Carter was a fraud and a con man, but he wasn't entirely wrong about Rebecca. She had wanted the dream more than the reality. The crowd was starting to disperse, people drifting back to the festival attractions, but still talking in small groups about what they'd just witnessed. I knew this story would be told and retold for years, growing more dramatic with each telling. "Daddy?" Tommy tugged on my sleeve. "Is Mom going to be okay?" I looked at Rebecca, who was standing alone now, still crying, still processing what had just happened to her life. "I think so, buddy. Your mom's tougher than she looks." "Are you going to help her?" The question caught me off guard. Why would I help her? "Because she's my mom, and because you're not mean like Daniel," out of the mouths of babes. I walked over to Rebecca, Tommy following behind me. She looked up as I approached, her eyes red and swollen. "Jack, Don't. We're not friends, Rebecca. We're never going to be friends. But we're Tommy's parents, and that means we need to figure out how to coexist." She nodded. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to drop the custody case, like you said. I want you to stop filing false police reports. And I want you to remember this day the next time you think about trying to destroy someone's life for sport." And in return, I thought about it. I could walk away now, leave her to deal with the wreckage of her marriage and her reputation. I could let her suffer the way she'd made me suffer. But Tommy was right. I wasn't mean like Daniel. "In return, I won't post these recordings on social media. And I won't send copies of Daniel's financial records to your law firm's partners." Rebecca's eyes widened. "You could destroy my career." "Yes, I could, but I won't. Not unless you give me a reason to." She nodded again, more vigorously this time. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Thank your son. He's the only reason I'm not burning your life to the ground." I turned to Tommy. "Ready for that cotton candy? Can Mom come with us?" I looked at Rebecca, standing there in her expensive dress with her makeup ruined and her perfect life in shambles. 6 years ago, she'd stood in a courtroom and humiliated me in front of everyone I knew. Today, I'd returned the favor. We were, even now. "Sure," I said. "She can come." As we walked toward the cotton candy stand, Tommy between us, I thought about the conversation I'd had with Mike at Flanagan's. He'd asked me how much I hated Rebecca, and I'd thought the answer was simple. But standing there at the spring festival, watching my ex-wife try to put her life back together while our son held both our hands, I realized the answer was more complicated than I'd thought. I didn't hate her anymore. I pitied her. And that, I realized, was the perfect revenge. The festival continued around us, families laughing and children playing, the normal rhythms of small-town life. Tomorrow, Rebecca would have to figure out how to rebuild her reputation, her finances, her life. She'd have to explain to her law partners how she'd gotten involved with a con man. She'd have to deal with divorce lawyers and financial auditors and all the messy consequences of trusting the wrong person. But today, she was just Tommy's mom, walking next to Tommy's dad, trying to pretend everything was normal for the sake of a 10-year-old boy who'd seen too much adult drama for one afternoon. "Dad?" Tommy said as we reached the cotton candy stand. "Yeah, champ. Are you and Mom going to be friends now?" I looked at Rebecca, who was watching me with something that might have been hope in her eyes. "We're going to try to be better than we were," I said. "For you." "Good," Tommy said, "because fighting is stupid." I bought him a cone of pink cotton candy and watched him tear into it with the enthusiasm that only 10-year-olds can muster. Rebecca stood beside me, quiet and subdued, probably still processing everything that had happened. "Jack?" she said finally. "Yeah." "How did you know? About Daniel, I mean. How did you figure it out?" I thought about Mike's research, about the financial documents and court records. I thought about the recordings Tommy had made, the conversations he'd captured. I thought about all the pieces coming together to reveal the truth about Daniel Carter. "I got lucky," I said. "Sometimes the bad guys make mistakes." And sometimes the good guys get help from unexpected places? I looked at her, surprised by the insight. Yeah, sometimes they do. We stood there for a while, watching Tommy play games and win prizes he didn't need. Other families moved around us, living their normal lives, unaware that they'd just witnessed the end of one story and the beginning of another. As the sun started to set, the festival began winding down. Vendors packed up their booths, families gathered their children, teenagers said goodbye until tomorrow. It was time to go home. "Tommy," I called, "time to head out." He ran over to us, his face sticky with cotton candy and his arms full of stuffed animals he'd won at the ring toss. "Can we do this again next year?" "Absolutely," I said. "All three of us?" I looked at Rebecca, who nodded slightly. "We'll see, champ. A lot can change in a year." As we walked toward the parking lot, I thought about what had changed in the past year and what might change in the year to come. Rebecca would rebuild her life, probably stronger and wiser than before. Daniel would move on to his next victim, or maybe finally face the consequences of his actions. Tommy would grow up a little more, hopefully learning from watching his parents navigate their complicated relationship. And me? I'd go back to my house on Maple Street, back to my construction business, back to my simple life, but I'd go back with my son still in it, still a part of my world every other weekend and Wednesday evenings. That was enough. That was everything. "Dad," Tommy said as we reached my truck. "What's up?" "I love you. I love you too, buddy." "I love you too, Mom." Rebecca's voice was thick when she answered. "I love you too, sweetheart." I helped Tommy into the truck and closed the door. Rebecca stood beside her car, looking lost and uncertain. "Rebecca," I said, "for what it's worth, I'm sorry it had to happen this way." "No, you're not." I thought about that. "You're right. I'm not sorry it happened. But I am sorry it had to happen in front of Tommy." She nodded. "I'll do better. I promise." "We both will." I got in my truck and started the engine. Through the windshield, I could see Rebecca standing in the parking lot, alone now, watching us drive away. In the rearview mirror, I saw her get in her car and sit there for a long moment before starting it. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and paperwork and all the mundane details of untangling a marriage built on lies. There would be questions from friends, gossip from neighbors, whispers at the grocery store and the post office. But tonight, I was driving home with my son, past the familiar streets of the town where I'd grown up, where I'd failed and rebuilt and finally learned how to fight back. "Dad?" Tommy said as we pulled into our driveway. "Yeah? What's going to happen to Mom?" "She's going to be fine. Your mom's a lot stronger than people think." "What about Daniel?" "Daniel's going to learn that actions have consequences." Tommy thought about that for a moment. "Good," he said finally. I didn't like him very much. Why not? He was always pretending to be something he wasn't, like he thought we were all too stupid to notice. Smart kid. Too smart, maybe. We got out of the truck and walked toward the house. The porch light was on, casting a warm glow over the front steps. Through the living room window, I could see the stack of books on the coffee table. The football we'd been throwing around last weekend. The normal debris of a life being lived. It wasn't much compared to Rebecca's big house on Prospect Street, or Daniel's dreams of venture capital and tech company success. But it was real. It was honest. And it was ours. "Can we build that bookshelf tomorrow?" Tommy asked as I unlocked the front door. "Absolutely. We've got all day." "Good. I've got a lot of books that need somewhere to go." I ruffled his hair. "Me too, champ. Me too." As we went inside and turned on the lights, I thought about the story I'd tell myself about this day. Not the public version, not the one that would become town legend, but the private one, the one that mattered. Today, I'd fought for my son and won. Today, I'd faced down the people who'd tried to destroy me and come out on top. Today, I'd learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting your life back. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you get to watch your enemies destroy themselves while you stand by with your hands clean and your conscience clear. The phone rang as Tommy was getting ready for bed. I answered it in the kitchen, expecting it to be Patricia Banks or maybe Mike checking in. It was Rebecca. "Jack, I just wanted to say thank you." "For what?" "For not destroying me when you could have. For thinking about Tommy first." "Don't read too much into it, Rebecca. I did what I had to do." "I know, but you could have done worse, a lot worse." She was right. I could have posted the recordings online, sent them to the local newspaper, made sure everyone in town knew exactly what kind of fool she'd been. I could have given the financial documents to her law firm, probably ending her career. I could have kept pushing until there was nothing left of her reputation or her self-respect. But I hadn't. Not because I was noble or forgiving, but because I'd gotten what I wanted. My son was safe, the custody battle was over, and Rebecca had learned that actions have consequences. Everything else was just details. Get some sleep, Rebecca. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Jack, about the custody arrangement. I meant what I said. I'll drop the modification request. I know you will. And I won't interfere with your weekends anymore. Tommy needs his father. Yes, he does. There was a long pause. Then, I really am sorry for everything. I know. I hung up and stood in my kitchen for a moment, listening to the familiar sounds of home. The dishwasher humming, the clock ticking, Tommy upstairs brushing his teeth and getting ready for bed. This was what I'd been fighting for. Not revenge, not vindication, not the satisfaction of watching my enemies fall. Just this, the simple, ordinary life of a father and son in a small New England town. Dad, Tommy called from upstairs. Can you come tuck me in? On my way. I turned off the kitchen light and headed upstairs, leaving the day's drama behind. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new problems to solve, new battles to fight. But tonight, I was just a dad tucking his kid into bed in a house we could call home. It was enough. It was everything.